That's our new client? I say. Yep, short track speed skater on deck. Mac smiles so big that her lip ring clinks against her bottom teeth. The guy slides off an oversized sweatshirt to reveal a form-fitting speed skating top. Enjoy the view, princess. He's too young for me, but we may have potential prom date material for you. I've watched enough Olympic speed skating on TV to know that your typical skin suit leaves nothing to the imagination. Though the rest of his body is willowy, this guy has thighs larger than Mac's, and yes, he could crack walnuts with those glutes. He ties a folded royal blue bandana around his forehead. Once his helmet is securely on, he plows over to the starting line, which also happens to be right in front of table 1, where I'm sitting. He crouches down into launch position with his left foot out front. He pounds his right foot into the ice at an 80-degree angle. His left arm bends across his chest. His right elbow cocks back. Silence floods the rink, and he waits. And waits, and waits some more. Is he going to skate or do the chicken dance? I almost fall off my bench seat when an air horn pierces the quiet of the rink. Meanwhile, the boy bursts off the start line like a runner. It only takes a few steps before he's coming into the turn. He drops into a 70-degree lean until his left fingers graze the ice. He's flying. Chicken Boy has turned into a phoenix. He pumps around the backstretch. The sound of blades cutting ice echoes around the rink. He loops another couple of times before he stands up tall and stretches his foot forward right over the imaginary finish line. Table number 1. That's a quote from Every Reason We Shouldn't by Sara Fujimura. This is YA Book Chat, and I'm your host, Leah Stuhler. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of YA Book Chat. Thank you, as always, for being here and listening. I always appreciate your support. Today, I am very excited. So this is a first for me. I am doing a book that ties in with an event that is taking place right now, which is the first time I've ever done this. So I am really excited. I'm going to be doing a tie-in with the 2022 Winter Olympics, which are February 4th through the 20th in China. So for that reason, I am covering the book Every Reason We Shouldn't by Sara Fujimura, because this book is about a figure skater and a speed skater who are Olympic hopefuls. Sara has been here before. I previously spoke with her about her book, Faking Reality, where we chatted about everything HGTV and delicious food. Sara is also an award-winning author, and I am very pleased to have her back again. Hi, Sara. Welcome back.
Hi, Leah. Thanks so much for having me back.
You're welcome. I'm very excited to talk about this and do this tie-in with the Olympics. It's just going to be so fun. In case I have new listeners who didn't hear the previous interview, why don't you tell everyone a little about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Sara Fujimura. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and I write books for teens who are intelligent and adventurous and globally minded, teens and the young at heart, who aren't afraid to fall in love with somebody who is completely different from themselves.
And they are great love stories, you guys. Like, they're always really fun. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about what Every Reason We Shouldn't is about?
Sure. So Every Reason We Shouldn't is about a 16-year-old washed up figure skater named Olivia Kennedy, who is trying to figure out what life is as a normal teen, because she doesn't know what normal is. So she's going to high school for the first time after being homeschooled, and she's trying to figure out what it means to be a normal teen. And into her family's struggling ice rink comes Jonah Choi, who wants to be the next Apollo Ohno. He's a short track speed skater. And at first, these two 1 in a million teens hate each other. And then they realize, oh my gosh, you're the only person who truly understands what it means to be that 1 in a million. So sparks begin to fly and things get a little bit bigger and heavier and a little bit scary.
Yes, and there's a fun scene involving a closet that takes place. Like
sparks fly in the closet, yes, in a totally different way.
Lots of fun. Well, I absolutely loved this book because growing up, I was always like watching figure skating with my mom and my sister and the Olympics in general. But, I remember, when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, every time I say that, I feel a little bit older, but it's fine.
I'm in the same boat. We're okay. So we're going to talk about how the cutting edge, it was inspired my book a little bit.
Yes. So, I grew up watching like Midori Ito and Christy Yamaguchi and Scott Hamilton and Brian Orser and the pair skaters, Katerina Gordieva and Sergei Grinkov, and like all these just fantastic skaters. It was like this golden age of figure skating during the 80s and 90s, I feel like. And of course, Apollo Ohno was at the Olympics when I was growing up too. And I remember hearing all about his story and what he went through. And it was just really inspiring just watching all of them. But Apollo Ohno's story, especially, and I know that that inspired you too. So can you tell us about how his story inspired you?
Sure. So, because this is a podcast, you can't see me. So, I am a white middle-aged woman, but I am married to a Japanese man. We've been married for over 25 years, and we have two biracial mixed Asian kids. One's 21 and the other is 23. So, like a lot of people, you look to see yourself in stories and out in the world. So, when we came across Apollo Ohno, when we were watching the Olympics, so his dad is a Japanese national, just like my husband Toshi, and his mom is a white American. She didn't really have much to do with his life, but seeing him as a biracial short track speed skater, we had been cheering him on for a long time. And when his book came out in 2010, his autobiography is called Zero Regrets. And I was reading it, I was just fascinated by it. And the part that stuck with me the most and really gave me the idea for this story was he tells about when he's about 15 or 16 years old, he's having a lot of success, but he's at the crossroads where, this is hard. It's hard to be, this level of athlete, and, maybe he has what it takes to be an Olympian, but there's going to be a lot of things that he's going to have to give up, or like the pain that he's going to have to do to see if he can even have a shot. And so he's at the crossroads and he's trying to figure out, do I want to do this or not? And he starts goofing around. He's getting distracted at school and girls and parties and stuff. And his dad, this would totally never fly today. His dad drops him off in like a cabin in the woods. And I don't think he's too far out in the woods, but he drops him off and gives him food. And I think he had like a dog with him or something. And he says, I'm going to drop you off for 2 weeks. And when I come back, you're going to tell me, are we going to do this at 100% or are we not going to do it at all? That would never fly today. But,
no.
But I was so fascinated by that. And this is the first book where the boy, the love interest, came to me first. So Jonah's character came first. He's very much modeled on Apollo Ohno, including the very strange diet that he follows. But I gave the crossroads story to Olivia. So the idea of, there's a lot of teens out there, and this, I think everybody has their own version of a crossroads story where the thing that was your identity comes into question of whether, do I continue with this or am I done? And so that's her story, is, am I done with this because it's gotten hard? Because she's moved up a level, she's moved up to the senior level, and that's the Olympic level. And now she had her butt handed to her, she and her partner, who I call Egg, had their butts handed to them, and they just don't know if they have it in it for another 4 years to maybe make it or maybe not. So.
Yeah. And it's a huge commitment, obviously, we look at it like, okay, every 4 years this happens, athletes train hard, but they train a lot more, I think, than people really realize. It's their life. It's their whole life. Like their parents like scrimp and save and spend all kinds of money because it's so expensive. They have to get sponsors a lot of the time to help pay for things because it does cost so much. People probably don't realize this, but those like really nice Olympic like figure skates, the skates cost thousands of dollars.
And I do talk about that in the book with Olivia when she decides that she wants to try it again, and she has to figure out how to get her body back into the old costume, because she can't afford another $10,000 skating dress for this thing, and she can't afford another $1,000 pair of skates. And there is a true thing about, they call it they hit the puberty wall, and this happens with gymnasts too, especially girls, where you're training so hard that you're not going through puberty, and then when you stop training really hard, whether it's by injury or choice, then your body's like, poof, now you have all your curves. And then if you decide, well, now I'm going to come back into it, you have to start from scratch again. And Olivia does, because her body has changed, and her sense of balance is off, and it's like starting all over again. So that is a true thing that happens in the skating world. They call it the hitting the puberty wall.
Oh man, I can't even imagine. When I was reading through it, it made me think of Tara Lipinski too. Now she
Mhm.
went, it was different for her because, you know, at 16, Olivia feels washed up. Tara Lipinski won a gold medal when she was 16 at the Olympics.
Where do
But
you go from there?
exactly. Well, that was, you know, so it's like one feels like washed up and I don't know what to do. The other one's like, I'm 16 and I won the gold, so I've already accomplished my dreams. What do I do now? Do I keep going and do more, or do I quit and try other things? Like, you know, so, and Tara Lipinski did end up retiring at that early of an age, and she's done she does a lot of commentating, and I think she still does.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it made me think of her too, because both sides of that, it's at 16, you know, like how do you deal with that as a teenager when you're going through all of these other emotions and changes and all of, you know, the hormones and all of the things.
There's a show that's on HBO. I don't know if it's still on HBO. It's called The Weight of Gold, and it was by Michael Phelps had a hand in it. And Michael Phelps is an Olympic swimmer, very decorated Olympic swimmer, and he lives here in Phoenix. And he had a bunch of Olympic athletes, including Apollo Ohno. He also had Sasha Cohen and Gracie Gold, so giving their 2 cents on the figure skaters' point of view. And it's a really fascinating show. It's very hard to watch, and trigger warnings for both depression and suicide. But they were talking about how the mental health really suffers from the Olympians, and even when you win gold, that the depression that sets in sometimes, because that's it, you know. Or if you get all, and I really feel bad for the athletes who are training for the Olympics now and can't go because of COVID, or might get there and then get COVID and can't compete, or that idea of like you've trained for one 2-minute race or something for 4 years and then it's all gone. And the one silver lining out of this idea is that I think a lot of teenagers, especially upper high school, will see themselves in it, because everybody has their own flavor of disappointment right now. With, you know, maybe you were the, you know, you're a high school senior this year, and this was supposed to be your year. You're supposed to be the varsity captain, or you're supposed to, you know, do stuff for the scouts or whatever. And it's like, oh no, sorry, we can't do that. We're not having the baseball season this year, or oh yeah, we're not doing dance anymore, or things that are taken away from you. And if you've put all your eggs in that one basket, and that's what's really biting Olivia and Jonah too, where all your eggs are in one basket. And if you lose it for whatever reason, you don't know who you are. And that's why I think a lot of high school juniors and seniors are really struggling with, is like, well, I can't do the thing that I've always done, or now I'm out of shape, or I haven't competed and I don't know what to do. Can I get it back, or am I done? So that's why I was talking about the whole crossroads theme that everybody has their own flavor of, and just it's over the top with Olympic skaters, but it is a truth for a lot of people.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Are you passionate about writing or just love the arts? Tune in to the Poetry Podcast with A. Discover the latest trends in the industry, enjoy insightful book reviews, participate in Q&As, listen to captivating poetry readings, and get inspired by author interviews. We release episodes on the first 3 Thursdays of each month. Don't miss out. Come check us out at the Poetry Podcast with A.
Yeah. And I think, when with the Summer Olympics, the last Summer Olympics, we saw Simone Biles going through a lot of this and deciding not to compete in all but one event because of that. And, it's unfortunate that so many people spoke so negatively about her. But if you don't know, if you haven't experienced it, you can't make those kind of comments. I mean, it's a very serious thing. Mental health is very important. There's a lot that they go through. I mean, I went through a period of my life where, now I wasn't a teenager when this happened, but, I went through a period of my life where I felt like I had hit a wall and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I sobbed every day, and it was really hard mentally, to try and figure out, well, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I still have, I don't know how many years left, like 40 or so, but it's like, what do I do with the rest of my life?
And I
And
think that's really something that a lot of people go through, that idea of, I mean, it's one thing, like if you have an accident and now you can't do it anymore, or there's a lot of stories about that. There's a lot of stories about the people who are just like destructive and then they had to rebuild, when they learned their lesson. But I think the harder ones are, I just lost my spark, or I just can't do this anymore, or I tried as hard as I could and it wasn't enough. And I think that is hard for so many teens and young adults. Of what do you mean? I gave it my 110% and it just wasn't enough, or I gave it 110%, but everybody else at this level can do that too, and they can do things that I can't do. And that's another really hard lesson for a lot of teens. And so that's why I wanted to write this book. And yes, this is a turned up version of it, but I hope that teens can see themselves and understand, it's like, oh, okay. I totally get that.
Yeah. And I think that they definitely will. And the other side of it too, another part of it is when you're, trying to figure things out and you think that you expect to have the support of those closest to you and who are supposed to help you, but then you find out that, oh, they don't think that I can do this. They don't feel the same way, and that was something that I had too when I was in college, my freshman year. My advisor was supposed to be supportive, and she came out and blatantly said to me, I don't think you should be a theater major. Why are you doing this? You're not good at this. And I was like flabbergasted, I was like, but I'm here to learn and get better. I just started, like, my freshman, you're supposed to teach me and help me. And she blatantly was like, no, you're bad at this. You shouldn't be doing this. You should be doing something else. And so it was a real struggle for me. And I was like, I don't know what to do with this. In the end, I stayed with it and pushed through, and thankfully had many other professors outside of her who were encouraging and supportive and said, no, you can do this, and really helped me improve so that I felt confident. And one of our characters goes through kind of the same thing. Somebody close to her, she a lot closer than your college professor. But, she hears the conversation and is like, oh, okay. And she has to have hard conversations with multiple people too, in order to figure out what's happening. And,
how to move forward, just how to move forward, and what is it going to look like? Are you going to get back onto the same path? Are you going to make a right turn and go in a different direction? Are you going to do it, but in a different way? So I think it's a universal story for a lot of people. So I hope they will find some support in that. And the other thing about having these very young, superstar kids is that it's not, like you said, it's not just one person. It's different if you're like 20 years old and you're an Olympian, because you can have a job and train and do the support and fly around the world and compete and whatever. But if you're a minor, then that's two people that have to go. So one of your parents or guardians has to go with you. And so I do have two young women in my life who were that one in a million. One was a dancer, and one is a dancer, and one is a singer. And watching their families and how to deal with, like, well, you're not an only child. There's other kids in the family too, and they need mom's time. They need money to do what's important to them. But your costumes, you have 7 performances in this next competition, and you can't wear the same outfit twice. Or the other one was signed with Sony Japan, and so she was going to Japan every Christmas break, spring break, summers, long weekends. She was going to record. She was recording her EP, and then in the summer she would go and she would tour around Japan singing. So she's the youngest of 3 kids, and her other 2 siblings are very talented in their own right. So like, how do you do that? Do you send the kid who's 16 by themselves, or mom has to go with them? And I really feel sorry for my friends. And it was different because there's the story of, it's actually the parent who's pushing the kid, and it's like, they didn't get to do it, or they want to, fulfill their dream. And you can tell it's about them pushing the kids, but neither of these kids are this. And the 2 real people in my life were not those kids either. So they were the hardest on themselves. They always wanted to do more, and their parents were like, can we not do that right now? It's like, yes, I know you can dance 7 days a week, but could we just have one day where we don't have to go to dance class? But they were really pushing themselves harder than anybody else. And I think that's different than, a parent trying to relive their glory days through their child.
Agreed. And the funny thing is I actually, when I look at my children, I think, two things. One, I don't want either one of them to ever say to me that they want to be an actor and study that in college, because I don't know if I'd be able to say, okay, after, my experiences, and then the other thing is that I look at them and I think, like, when they play sports and one of them does gymnastics and the other one does baseball consistently. And I think, oh man, even just doing like baseball, like 3 days a week and gymnastics 1 day a week is a lot in, in the seasons. I cannot even imagine, like 6 or 7 days a week of all of this. Plus, with figure skating and speed skating, a lot of the times, like you say in the book, they're up at like the crack of dawn before the sun comes up at the rink at like 5 a.m., skating. We'll go do tutoring or go to school if that's what they're doing, come back, skate like all night long. Olivia and Egg skated till like midnight, 1 a.m. So, it's so exhausting, and I can't even fathom what that is like.
So Jonah's his regimen that we talk about, like him, going to run before school, he takes PE so he gets an extra workout, goes after school to train on the ice, does land workouts where he's doing squats and lifting weights and eating his little boiled eggs and stuff. That all came from Apollo Ohno. It's like, I did not make that up. That came right out of his autobiography.
I believe that. Because I've seen like different documentaries and stuff about different skaters Olympic athletes in general, different ones that I've watched. And yeah, their routines are just insane. I cannot even imagine. It is, but it's like, you give up everything, and that's what happened. What you talk about in the book too, is how Jonah and Olivia both have to give up so many different things, and they can't really feel like they have a normal life, even though Olivia is not competitively skating at the moment. She still doesn't feel normal because there's all these other things, and some involving Jonah. So yeah, it's a really big commitment. Like, you have to be like, I really love this to want to do that and make all those sacrifices. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I love Jonah and Olivia's relationship. They are it's super fun. It's cute. They have this like strangers to lovers. She's not sure about him at first. Like, who is this guy taking my ice time? Why do I have to be here and stay late and do this? And why is his dad bringing in, this fancy equipment and stuff into our rink and all of this?
She's jealous. Yes. So that's why I noticed, like, a lot of them, because they're almost, strangers to enemies to lovers. That idea. The thing, especially if it's like really off the wall, or that thing that really bugs you about somebody else is something, the psychology a lot of times it's something about yourself that you don't like. And so he is definitely reflecting back all the things that she doesn't like about herself. And that's why they butt heads so much at first. And then they realize, oh yeah, I do that too.
Yes. Like when she's icing her hip and he's like, oh, do you use this frozen food too? And she's like, yeah, I use the same thing.
It's not my first rodeo. I know how to do this.
I know how to ice my hip with a frozen peas.
Bag of peas. Yes, I was a dancer. So I was like, you and you're sitting on the couch with your frozen bag of peas on your knees.
Yep. I love watching how their relationship develops, because once they do figure that out and they make that connection, they're just very sweet together. They do have, a fun scene in the closet where they get busted by Mac. How many of us, I was reading that and I'm just laughing and I'm like, yeah, totally, have had that. Or, everybody kind of wants to have that like one little moment of some kind of like little rendezvous in the closet, hidden in secret,
Well, they live at the rink. So they haven't really lived there at school, or they're at the rink. And so they don't have many choices of where they can hang out. So
very true. Very true. I really liked the different family dynamics that you have in the story, because there's such a diverse representation. And I think that that's great because, nobody's families are the same. Everybody comes from different different backgrounds. And I think that it's, a lot of teens who are going to read it are going to really be able to relate to the book a lot for that reason as well. We've got, Olivia's family with her mom and dad. Her dad is gone. Her dad is on tour. He's touring with this like Olympics on ice.
It's kind of like ice capades, but I couldn't call it that, so I call it Olympians on ice. So the story, he and Olivia's mom Midori are like a gold medal figure skating royalty, but she's been injured and so she can't skate. So she's trying to hold down the fort at home and keeping the skate rink going. And he has to do something. They're not making a lot of money, so. And they even have a conversation. It's like, this is the only thing I know how to do is skate. Because I didn't go to college. I didn't go to high school. All I have is this gold medal. And this is the only thing I can do to put food on the table right now. It's that or coach. And so he's gone, but it's not because he wants to. And, people make fun of him or criticize him. Oh, he's just living his glory days. But the truth is that's the only thing that he can do. And if you've read some really sad Olympian accounts of people who you think they would have it all, and they don't, that they're destitute or, they have to move in with relatives or something like that, because that's the only thing that they know how to do. And now that that's gone and the money's gone, now what? So he's doing what he can to keep his family going. Her mom is doing whatever she can to keep the family going. And then Olivia does her part just to help out where she can.
Yeah. And, her mom she's got the injury. And so, unfortunately for Olivia, because of her mom's physical limitations, she's not, and the pain that she's constantly in, she's not always there for Olivia. And she's not, Olivia doesn't feel as supported as, she wants to from her mom. And then on the other side of this, we have Jonah, who's got both of his parents there. They have a lot of money. They're very supportive. They can give him whatever he wants, send him wherever for training.
He's the family business in a lot of ways.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I didn't look at it that way, but that's yeah, exactly.
And they talk about, it's like, and they even have a moment. It's like, are you going to do this or are you not going to do this? Because we're spending your college education money right now. So, and what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. So.
Yeah. And his dad is a very no nonsense business. You need to strict man when he's in that ring with Jonah, I
do get some pushback sometimes because people assume because he's Asian and his mom is Asian, also Korean, that, it's the tiger mom. It's the tiger's no, that's not true. That's this is such a huge investment and it affects our entire family. So you're going to have to do it at 100% or we're not going to do it because we just can't afford to take the financial hit on it. So no screwing around.
That's how I read it. I mean, I definitely didn't read it the other way. For me, it made total sense with how serious his dad was about it and how much he pushed him and, really wanted him to go for it. Like you said, I mean, and his mom was super fun. I love reading the scene when they're at the house with the birthday party and she totally embarrasses him.
She wants him to have us be so normal and he's not.
No.
Insisting that he's going to have a birthday party. You will have a birthday party. You will have friends over.
With a big, huge cardboard cutout of himself.
Yeah.
I mean, what 16, 17-year-old kid doesn't want a huge cardboard cutout of himself at his birthday party, So, but it's fun too, to see how she is with Olivia, and just how sweet she is. I'm glad that he has you as a friend, I know what's going on here and I'm happy about it.
Well, she's like, no, fine. I'll be upstairs.
She
knows what's going on.
When Olivia stays for the movie. Yeah. And then our third kind of interesting family dynamic too is we have Mac, who works at the rink, and she's kind of like a pseudo mom to Olivia, but Mac is a single mom herself, not a ton of support from baby daddy. He's there, but he doesn't always give as much support as he should. She lives with her grandmother. Her grandmother, man, I like her grandmother. She is a no nonsense, kind of gives it to the Mac's ex there, the baby's dad. So I liked her. Just very fierce.
Yeah, a lot of people really like Mac, and I am working
Mhm.
on a sequel for Every Reason We Shouldn't, but I want to go back in time and go to, so in Every Reason We Shouldn't, Mac is 19 years old, almost 20. And I want to go back in time to Mac's senior year of high school, to where she stopped being Annabelle McIntosh and became Mac Truck. So Mac Truck is her derby girl name. She wants to be a roller derby queen, and she is trying to get on the roller derby team, and she's not having a lot of success. So again, people who try hard, and it's just not enough. So
Yeah.
she's an interesting character, and I think one that a lot of people can relate to, because she is that prep school kid who was valedictorian, always did school really well, is going to go to Stanford because that's what her family's been telling her, and it doesn't happen. And when it doesn't happen, she had all her eggs are in one basket. There's a theme going here.
Yes.
All her eggs are in one basket, and going to the state school is not, an option for her. And then everything just totally derails. So she understands, and she's ends up being good friends with Jonah and Olivia, because she's them, just in a different package. So she's not an athlete, but she understands the perfectionism and the cost of perfectionism. And because she's a little bit older, she can give them some, looking back hindsight of these are things I wish I would have done differently. She doesn't have a regret about having a baby. She just regrets about having it so soon.
Right.
But it's interesting because she can be very hard and crusty, and she's the friend who just tells you how it is, whether it's rude or not. But at the same time, she can be very sweet with her own daughter, and taking care of Olivia when Olivia's mom can't step up for other reasons. It's not that she's being ignored. It's just sometimes her mom has to put on her own oxygen mask first and just take care of her own self. So it's not that she's a terrible person. It's just, she just doesn't have the bandwidth. And Olivia's in that weird place where I think a lot of really talented teens are, where they're an adult, but they're not an adult at the same time. And nobody can figure out which basket that they're in. And there's even a push and pull between Olivia and her mom, where she's expected to do a lot of things that adults do, but then she treats her like a child sometimes too. And then sometimes Olivia acts like a child. She acts her age, and she has the tantrum because she's just so frustrated, and it's like, well, you need to, man up and be an adult and stuff. And it's like, I can't. So
I'm not an
adult. You
adult.
have teenagers that really fun age where it's like teenage toddlers where they can get very emotional about some silly things. And it's a lot of fun.
I'm not there quite yet.
Oh, just wait.
We're getting close. I know.
Just wait.
I am currently dealing with an 8-year-old who I feel like is like regressing back into toddlerhood for some reason. And I don't know what is happening right now. So then I have one who's 11, and we're hitting that like tween stage and all these things. So it's coming soon. I know, I'm just trying to hold off, but I am really excited that you just said that, because I love Mac. Like, I would love to get more of her story. So that makes me really excited that we're going to get more about her.
Yeah.
She's so fun. I love that, like, of all things, that her thing is roller derby. Like, I could just totally picture her out there, in her inline skates, banging into everybody and doing all the things.
So what's funny is I started off as a journalist, and so I love to do research. I love to interview people and what they're passionate about, and build out stories about things I know nothing about. So when I came in to writing this story, I knew nothing about, I don't know anything about figure skating. Everything I know about short track speed skating comes from Apollo Ohno. The only thing that I had a little bit of a handle on was a roller derby. And because I love to roller skate, I've always loved to roller skate. I don't do roller derby, but if somebody could like put a magic spell on me that I wouldn't get hurt, I totally would, because I think it'd be a lot of fun. But I had done an article for our local an Arizona parenting magazine on roller derby mamas. And then so all the the details and stuff about Mac, and they go to the roller derby, and it's a true thing. You can go to, it's Ability 360 in downtown Phoenix. You can go and see the roller derby. All that stuff came out of my research from the article, and then a little bit more up to date kind of research too. So
that's very fun. I've seen, like, the only thing I've ever seen for roller derby is like in like a movie once. And I was like, boy, that's really rough. Like, is it like that all the time? Like, I felt like
was it Whip It? Was it Whip It that you saw with Ellen Page? And now it's Elliot Page, but
might have been. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a little bit different, because that's the banked roller derby. that's a little more WWE, and the real roller derby is, what they're doing with Mac is flat track, so it's just a basketball stadium kind of thing. So and there, I mean, there's elbows are being thrown, but it's not quite as dramatic,
not as violent as one would think. Like, I'm watching this thinking, boy, they better have an ambulance on hand. It's like when I'm watching rugby.
My knees hurt watching it.
Very true. I was actually, I'm glad you brought up the research about this, because I wanted to ask you. I saw in the acknowledgments, that you had different people who you thanked for help with different things. So I wanted to ask you about the research that you had to do for this, especially with, the figure skating and the speed skating and getting like all of the terms and everything. I mean, I'm reading it and I was like, oh, I know exactly what a triple double is, because I've watched it like since I was like 7 years old, and I know like it's a triple Salchow, that's a triple axel. If you don't have much experience, you're not going to know. I mean, I can't tell you how to execute a darn thing. I can just look at it now and be like, oh yeah, okay. So tell me about the research you had to do for this.
Yeah. Oh, so much research, so much research. One of the things that was interesting is I got to interview a former pairs figure skater who competed on the Olympic level. His name is Mirko Goolsby, and he competed for the German team back in the day. And so I got to talk to him a little bit. And one of the questions that I had for him was, because I was thinking about doing some kind of sequel, having an opening for myself. I was like, so spoiler alert, I could not make Olivia and Jonah be like competitive skaters together. Mirko said that's absolutely would not happen. You cannot go cutting edge on this. It would not work. Not at that level. And I said, well, what if I make him like an ice dancer? And then he's like, no, it won't work. They're two totally different things. So I was like, okay. But they do skate together and they have some wonderful moments, and their signature move that they do, I actually got from a friend of mine named Katie, who she has a book out also. Katie Van Ark is called The Boy Next Door. And it's a YA book about a pairs figure skater, and the boy who is her partner does live next door. And so this kind of goes with the best friends to lovers kind of trope. So she helped me a lot because she's a skater. And then near the very, very end, tour team gave it to Courtney Milan. So I don't know if you know who Courtney Milan is. She's a really famous, she writes romance. She writes adult romance. She started off as a lawyer. She loves to do historical fiction, like deep dive historical fiction. She is just so whip smart. She writes all kinds of books, romance books, but her thing that she loves is skating. Like, she's traveled all around the world to go to skating. She knows all the details, all the rules. And what I know about that world comes from Yuri on Ice. And so I like to say that Every Reason We Shouldn't is actually closer to Yuri on Ice, the anime, than it is to the cutting edge. But all like the ranking and there's like some politicking that has to go on. And if you get this point and you have to score this high and that high. And so we gave it to Courtney Milan, and she blurbed the book, which I'm very thankful for. But one of the things that she helped us with, and this was right at the 11th hour, was she's like, okay, well, Sarah, most of this is right, but there's some things that are wrong. Okay, so I'm a perfectionist. Nobody's surprised if you read this book, because I'm just like them. I'm a perfectionist. I'm like, I want to know. Tell me all the things that are just wrong. Yeah. And so it's like little teeny tiny things. She said, well, the outfit that you have her in, the Phoenix costume, she would get deducted points. So the costume that she's been wearing for the last 8 years, at the last minute I had to change into something else. So I'm still having a hard time keeping that in my head. And then one scene where she had like some little glittery little sequins on the side. She's like, no, she would be deducted points for that too. So little tiny things that most people wouldn't know, but if you're like a figure skater or you really follow it close, it would really grate on your nerves. So I appreciate that. But still, if there's any mistakes, it's my fault. Or I sometimes I'll change stuff. I know it's not correct, but it's a wink to somebody else, or it's something fun that's come out of my life. So one of the things is they have it's the night of the birthday party, and they watch a little bit of the skating from Sapporo in Hokkaido, Japan. And at the time, it would not have been in Hokkaido, but I put it in Hokkaido anyway, because I had just been to Hokkaido that summer before it came out. And I went to, they had the Olympics there. They had the Winter Olympics, and they have a Winter Olympics museum. And I have a gold medal, which I bought from the gift shop.
Nice.
Most I'm going to get. I got to stand on the little podium and look down the giant ski where like you
Oh,
with the
yes.
giant ski. I can't
jump.
imagine, and this was in the summertime, but like I was like looking down, it's like I can't imagine anybody who would purposely throw themselves off this height, much less like multiple times.
I think about that too when I watch the ski jumping, that thing. I'm like, that is so crazy high. And you just jump off it. Like you just go and you jump off it and you're just sailing through the air. And there's so many things that could go wrong. So many, but yeah, it's very high. I didn't know that too about like them not having little things on their faces. I mean, that would explain why, you know, they put a lot of makeup on, but there's never like the jeweled stuff on their faces. It's more like stuff.
Because if it falls off and falls onto the ice, then you are penalized.
And that makes sense because that's really dangerous for them. I mean,
that's why they don't throw flowers on the ice either. See, I didn't know that either. Because it's, you know, people like throwing flowers. They're like, no, they don't throw flowers on the ice because it gets like little pieces on the ice and it can be dangerous. That's why they throw stuffed animals. That's why they throw Winnie the Pooh at the Japanese skater.
See, I didn't know that either. Because I have seen, so I mean, when I was younger, they would throw flowers a lot, and they always have the girls like who come out and, you know, pick up the flowers. But that makes sense because I have seen the stuffed animals thrown out there too. That's clever.
Yeah. So it's those types of things that don't make or break the story, but that's the thing that I like in all my stories and all my books that I write, that you can read it just at the, you know, it's the most superficial level. And it's just a sweet romance. It's an empowering story. It's a coming of age story, or you can go back and read it a second time. Then you can start picking stuff apart. And I talk a lot on social media about behind the scenes, or what inspired me, or here's a real place that you can go to, or here's the food and this is what it is. And I just love to cram as much fact into my fiction as possible. That's my journals. And even then, that's like the tip of the iceberg, and you don't see all the hundreds of hours of research underneath. So for example, I once famously spent like multiple hours researching doorknobs for Breathe.
Oh,
nobody cares, but I wanted to know what the doorknob looked like. So yeah.
You know, it actually makes me really happy hearing that, Sarah, because I am a very like detail oriented person. And so I am that annoying person that when you watch a movie with, or a TV show, even like I'll be in the background and go, oh, that's wrong. They did that wrong. And my husband will go, what are you talking about? I'm like, look, that back there, it wouldn't be like that. That's wrong. It should be like this. So like, I always love when I hear other people talk about it too. I'm like, okay, good. It's not just me.
No, it's not just you.
It's important though, because there are people like us who notice these things, you know, like important details. We'll be watching and I'll be like, oh, the continuity expert on this movie's messed something up because that's not right.
Very true.
Yeah. All right. So I can't talk about one of your books with you without talking about the food.
Yes.
What I thought was interesting this time was, so we have the Asian foods, but you also have Brandon in here who does some very, you know, American baking of the cookies and the brownies and all the things. So I thought it was fun to kind of throw that in there too. We get a mixture.
Yeah, Brandon is their friend who is the stress baker. So whenever he feels stressed out, he cooks. So he's always bringing stuff in. And what's interesting is so I have to back up a little bit. So I get a little bit of pushback, and I totally knew I would, about how Jonah and Olivia eat. And there's a bigger conversation within, you know, the sporting world, especially sports like gymnastics or figure skating for girls in particular, about eating disorders. And it's a very important conversation. But at the same time, one of the things I wanted to show was actually it's Jonah who I would be more concerned about, because he is so rigid with what he eats. But again, that came right out of Apollo Ohno's autobiography. So why do boys get a pass? And to me, his eating looks more altered than hers. And so she gives him a hard time about, you know, drinking Pepsi, or, you know, being normal, or going to the party and not eating the food, and being very strict with his diet. But I get more pushback on Olivia because she is the more stereotypical. But what's interesting is it really, yes, it's a little bit about diet, because again, we talked about how she has to fit back into the clothes. So she has to, she's hit the puberty wall and she's trying to get back into her old clothes because there is no money to replace them. But also there's food insufficiency in her house, desperately food insufficiency with her dad gone. And a lot of kids don't understand that Dobby the house elf does not show up with groceries every week and magically gets dinner that it appears on the table. That somebody has to make the money. Somebody has to go to the grocery store. Somebody has to pick out the food. They have to fix it. And so that's what I wanted to see is like, she has food insufficiency at her house.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're trying to be an Olympic level athlete or a high level athlete or performer, and you're just, you should only be eating, sustainably organic foods and organic this and organic that, and you're on food stamps, or you have, 5 other brothers and sisters. Yeah, that's nice, but we can't eat the keto diet, or we can't eat this diet or that diet, because we just don't have the money to do it. So there is a privilege and a biases to people. You have to be wealthy to be able to work at such a high level. And as much as we give pushback to the gymnasts and the figure skaters, it's a whole industry, the whole diet industry. And right now it's the end of January when we're recording, and every message you see on social media is about this diet and that diet. And, are you doing keto? And, oh no, you need to be drinking this tea. And so it's a little bit, we're saying one thing and then we're doing something totally different. So it's very hypocritical that we're saying, we shouldn't be having this message to young girls, but at the same time, you're talking about your diet that you're doing this week, or I'm not eating this. So I hope that people will use my book as a jumping off point of where does altered eating begin? But if you do have an eating disorder, then maybe this book is not for you, because there are some serious issues that need to be talked about. But I think it can be used as a gateway of knowing how are we fueling your body, but is it becoming something that is dangerous too? But that's why I give you Brandon, because Brandon's on the other end of the spectrum. There's no such thing as too much sugar. That's his love language is food. And despite that love language is my food, this is actually the least foodiest of all my books, believe it or not. All my books have food in them, and Faking Reality, which came out with Tortine in 2021, is actually set in a restaurant part of the time. So that's my foodiest book ever. But all of my books have foods and sweets and stuff. So
they do. Yeah. Faking Reality. Like I could not get through any chapter of that without feeling hungry at the end.
Yes.
I was very hungry. And I told you then, I literally went to my Japanese friends and was like, where can I get this food? I just read about this in this book and I need to try it. Where can I get this? And then this one I like, because you have some Korean sweets. How do you say that?
Yes. So the only thing that breaks through for Jonah, except for he does have a little bit of Pepsi. But the thing that breaks through is his grandmother used to make him it's a Korean street food called hotok. And it is a yeasty pancake, and sometimes they have different things in them, but this yeasty pancake has like cinnamon sugar and nuts and things like that in it. And that's what his grandmother would make for him every, Saturday morning before he skates. So that idea that it has a emotional component to it. And that's what it is, food can be love. So yes, food is about nutrition and calories, but it also can be like, this makes me feel happy. This makes me feel happy. And so I wanted to play into that to help counteract some of the negative like food issues that are going on in the book.
That makes sense. And I know for me, I have a lot of emotional connection to certain foods too, because I would cook and bake with my grandmother all the time, and she has since passed on. And that's one of the things I remember is just always being in the kitchen with. I mean, my family is Italian, so we are like born and raised in the kitchen. So, but it's always like, but we love it, and we love being together and doing these things together and making them together in the kitchen. So there's a lot of emotional connection for me too with food. So, I mean, for me, that's another reason that I really connect with your books, because there is that. And so I'm sure a lot of the teens and other people who are reading it will as well. Okay, now tell me about some of these others, and I'm totally going to butcher their names, but is it tonkatsu? How do you say that?
Tonkatsu, yes.
Okay.
So tonkatsu, if you watch Yuri on Ice, you'll see tonkatsu. So it's just a pork cutlet that's battered in with the panko, the breadcrumbs, and deep fried. So
wow, nice and healthy there.
Yes.
But delicious.
It is delicious.
Sure. Okay, and then I don't even know how to. Oh goodness, Ochazuke.
Ochazuke is where you take rice and you pour green tea, and it has there's different things that you can put into it, but it's basically like a porridge kind of thing. So a lot of people eat it when they're not feeling well, or if they're hungover or something like that, when your stomach's kind of upset, because it's nice and starchy and salty, and
Gotcha.
it just helps your tummy feel better. So,
which is why the character who got that particular dish.
well, what's interesting about that scene is I'm an author who loves to do like flashbacks or little winks and nods to other books, and so, or little cameos. So they go to the Wisteria Cafe, and they are served by Skylar Doucette, who is the main character for from Tanabata Wish, my first book that came out. So she's the one that goes to Japan, and she gives them some melon pan. And so if you read Tanabata Wish, melon pan is the thing that she and Ryohei share. So Jonah and Olivia have hoto, and Sky and Ryohei have melon pan. So that's their thing. So you see her at the end. And then my other little wink and nod is Wisteria is Fuji. So my last name is Fujimura, which means Wisteria Village. So that's why it's the Wisteria Cafe. And if you're reading Faking Reality, I give a little shout out to the Wisteria Cafe again, as one of their little helpers, and the two Dakota and Leo's older sister talk about there's some boy over there who's like speed skater, has like a medal around. He's really cute. We should go like talk to him. That's Jonah. They don't call him Jonah, but that's Jonah.
And I read that one first before this one, so I didn't catch it, but that's awesome. I love it. I'm going to go back and read Faking Reality again. And then when I do, I'll be like, oh yeah, I know who that is now. Yep. So fun. I love that.
Because if I could wave a magic wand, I would like to be sort of like Becky Albertalli, where you have like that one universe. So we could do like a television show or something like that, where you could see all these characters from each of the contemporary books, the Breedlord, but the contemporary books in the same universe. So, and just weaving them all, because they all live in, or they all start out at least in Arizona, in the Phoenix area. So it could happen.
Yeah, why not? Hey, 6 degrees of separation, right?
Yeah.
We've all got that for Kevin Bacon, at least, so why not for book characters?
Well, I like writing books about very specific places instead of just like any town in America, where like, okay, it could be Kansas, it could be Georgia, I don't know. So I said it, I set them in Phoenix, or the book I'm working on right now is set out east of Phoenix, but it still has the Arizona vibe. Our town is different. Phoenix is not LA, just like Tokyo is not Nagoya, where Tanabata Wish is set. So every city has its own flavor and just different ways of doing things.
And I think that's fun too, that you do set it in specific places, because then people who have been there or live there can really relate to it. Oh yeah, I know this, or, that sounds like this place maybe, or, like when I read books, that does it for me. Like it pulls me into the story even more, because I know, like, I've been to this place, or even like I was reading a book that takes place in New York City recently, and the character was talking about how like she likes to go to Milk Bar to get, coffee or whatever, get desserts. And I was like, so I've never been to Milk Bar, but I've heard of it.
I haven't been either, but I've heard of it. I definitely want to go.
I'm going there in February. So it made me even more, I was like, oh, she mentioned Milk Bar in her book. Like, and I'm going to go there. That's really exciting. Oh, and I know where this is in New York City, and I know where this is. And then I actually thought to myself, I'm going to New York. I kind of want to like do like a book tour of this book, like go to the places that were mentioned in the story.
About it. I think that's really cool.
That would be fun. Really but yeah, so I love when little details like that are included, and like you said, little nods to your other characters in your worlds and your different books. And I think those connections just pull you in a little bit that much more, and make it all the more interesting and engaging too. So aside from the fantastic story, of course, it just adds to it and pushes it up. So, but well, this was great, Sara. Thank you. I loved hearing about this story. Like I said, this book was like a piece of nostalgia for me in so many ways, just with the figure skating. I told my husband just the other day, I said, by the way, we've got like a week ish until the Olympics start. I just want you to know, whether you like it or not, I'm going to be watching figure skating. So just kind of
Me too.
deal with it.
No, I can't wait. I mean, Apollo Ohno is not skating, but
Right.
I can't wait to watch the short track and
Yep.
The figure skating. And I just love the pairs and everything is just so beautiful. So
Me too.
yeah, I'm not going to be getting a lot done for this month, next month.
February is going to be in front of the TV watching the Olympics. So, and I meant to mention earlier too, the tour, so that her dad is on, that Olivia's dad is on, the Olympians on Ice. I used to go to those things all the time.
The ice capades.
Oh my gosh. Well, not just the ice capades, but they would have and I think they still do. I don't know. It's been a while. The tours with the Olympians in them, and the Olympians, skate around and do all I remember being at one and watching the Russian pairs, gold medalists, Katerina Gordieva and Sergei Grinkov skating. And then at the end of their routine, the announcer said, "You have just seen a trio skate." That's how they announced that she was pregnant, which was it was so fun. And I still remember experiencing that. And then when he passed away, that was I was devastated, because I had grown up so much watching all of this. It was very sad. With Midori's, Olivia's mom's injury too, you watch figure skating, you watch the pairs and stuff, and you see how beautiful and artistic it is, but it can be really dangerous too. Her dad accidentally dropped Midori. And I remembered, as I was reading this too, when I was younger, there was a pairs couple who was skating and they were doing side-by-side spins, and they ended up too close to each other, and his skates sliced her forehead. I mean, it was a whole, so it is beautiful, but it is also very, very dangerous. It can be.
Yeah, I watched a lot of YouTube, and it was hard to watch because I wanted to know what kind of fall and what it looked like and stuff. So, that was a little hard to do, but I wanted to do the research to see. But you're right. I mean, just the idea of how sharp the blades are, and that's why the speed skaters wear the Kevlar suits and stuff, because even I think it was Apollo Ohno. Was it Apollo Ohno? I can't remember. Somebody had their inner thigh cut really deep, because they crashed into somebody else, and if it had gone 1 inch deeper, then he would have bled out. So just how dangerous this is. So yeah,
was Apollo Ohno the one who, when he was at the Olympic, his sister had just died? Was that him?
No, he's an only child.
Somebody else. Okay. It was a different speed skater then, because I do vividly remember that. And I was trying to remember if it was him or if it was somebody else who it was Dan something, I think.
I know who you're talking. I can't remember his last name.
He was an American. Yes. Okay. All right.
So anyways. I love when they do the behind the scenes, and they, interview where they came from, and, they find the biggest stories of I know their grandma just passed away, or she said, or she's on her deathbed and said, "No, you gotta go, make us proud." There's definitely storytelling. So if you read Faking Reality, you totally understand the idea of no, we're gonna milk this for all it's worth. Who has the best story? Who's gonna make people cry?
It's reality TV shows are like that too. If you watch The Voice or whatever, that everybody's got some kind of back sob story. Not to say belittle what people go through. People go through rough situations, and I totally get it. But that's what the TV producers like to bank on. They like to push this and say, look at this, feel bad for this person. We want you to like this person because this is what they're going through in their personal life. So, all right. Well, yeah, thank you. This has been so much fun. Why don't you, I know you talked a little bit about Tanabata Wish and Faking Reality. Are there other books you want to tell everybody about, your other books you have?
Sure. So I have one more book that's out right now. It came out in 2018 for the 100th anniversary of the Spanish flu pandemic. It's called Breathe. And when it came out, people were like, "What's that? I don't know." And who knew that 2 years later, we'd all be experts on pandemic living. So I was I've been very interested to see that there's been a uptick in sales, because I thought like the last thing people would want to read is about pandemic living and just the being scared about not knowing what's going to happen and how to defeat it and stuff. So, but it is a story of resilience and especially for girls coming out of the kitchen, breaking glass ceilings, finding a new path for themselves and challenging, old ideas. And that's what we're seeing right now too. So there's a lot of echoes in between the two of them that I think are really connecting with people. That's historical fiction, 1918 Philadelphia. So again, if you like to go to real places, you can, you too can go down to Little Italy. You have to bring your own Italian with you. Their chauffeur Marco is an Italian boy, and he takes her down to Little Italy, the 9th Street Market in Philadelphia, to have gelato for the first time, and lots of eating, lots of going to different places. So
I'm going to have to read that one too.
Yeah.
I mean, all the stuff. Plus I'm Italian. So, there's that.
Yeah, you really, I think you would connect to it. Yeah.
I think so too. All right. Well, thank you, Sara. I'm going to put links in the show notes to Sara's website and her social media for you guys. And I think I'm going to put a link also to Apollo Ohno's book that you mentioned, Zero Regrets. That sounds really interesting. And I think maybe a lot of people might be interested in reading that one too. So
yeah, just to get inside the head of an Olympian before you watch the Olympics.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, Sara. It was great to have you.
Thanks so much, Leah.
No problem. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will chat again soon. Today's episode featured the book Every Reason We Shouldn't by Sara Fujimura. I'd like to take a minute just to say thank you to Sara for joining me on YA Book Chat today. Be sure to follow YA Book Chat on Instagram and Facebook, and don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you get your episodes as soon as they are available. YA Book Chat was created by, is hosted, and edited by me, Leah Stuhler.